It's a dream come true. We have Al Shalloway in my show, and he is none other than the CEO and the founder of Success Engineering. And not only that, the entire Disciplined Agile Value Stream Consultant Program, one of the most interesting programs I have seen in my entire career is DAVSC, where we have just 125 certified professionals worldwide. It's an awesome program which Al Shalloway has designed it. Thank you so much for the DA Flex and the entire DAVSC program as well, Al Shalloway. So welcome to the show here.
Well, thank you very much, and I love your enthusiasm about it.
Thank you, thank you. So the topic is very simple here, which is quite known to all of us. That's recession, right? So we have been talking about recession since quite some time. In fact, several years, right? So we are living in the VUCA world. We are living in the world where we need to add a lot of value. And who better can talk about the value than the creator of the value stream consultant program, right? So Al Shalloway, some of the questions which I'm going to ask you would be around how the project teams can emerge stronger from the economic downturn and the VUCA world today.
Sure, that's a good question. Or you're asking me now
Yes,
how we
yes,
can.
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought, yeah, creating the framework for that. Well, here's the thing, and this is one of the things where the DAVSC is quite different than what you see mostly out there. We do live in a complex world, there's no question. And that means we can't see everything that's there. So we cannot take predictive models and just say this is what we're going to do. What we need to do is be able to respond quickly. That's the key. It's not to say, oh my goodness, we're in a complex world and we can't figure things out. No, that's the wrong attitude. I love Dr. Ellie Goldratt, the creator of Theory of Constraints' view, that at the core of everything, it's really not complicated at all. It's actually simple, that there are a few factors governing everything. He calls this inherent simplicity. And the DAVSC is somewhat based on this because it's not just what do you do? People talk about what you do as really important. Well, it is, but if you can't enroll people in doing it, it ain't going to happen. So part of what's needed is to have a way to look in this VUCA world where everything's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. What are the few things causing this? Recognizing there are other things we don't see and that we have to discover them as we go, but that we take control, so to speak, of how do we discover what's happening. And this is where in the DA Flex system, which is the heart of the DAVSC, I've created a way to look at what's happening. You know, I call them factors for effective value streams, and I'm not going to go into that detail. I'm driving down a little too deep here, perhaps. But the idea is, what can you look at to see how to respond and act in the midst of this complexity? Now, when recessions take place, when things happen, when there are downturns, anytime something adverse happens, people tend to get very nervous, and maybe they should, because if you don't do anything, something bad will likely happen. But there are always, and I do mean always, opportunities for those people who are looking for what happens. And that means you have to be responsive. So the key is feedback. The key is how quickly can you see what's happening and how quickly can you see how your actions are in response to that. So to me, that's the opportunity. The opportunity is not to get stuck in what you're doing and to make sure what you see is that what you see actually is what's important. I'm going to actually make a book recommendation here, which is The Choice by Ellie Goldratt. This is where I got a lot of this from, is this ability to look into complex systems, recognize you don't see everything. But it's kind of like, you know, if you have a boat that's leaking and it's got 4 holes in it, and you stop one hole and you're still leaking, you say, oh my goodness, it's too complex. I can't solve it. Oh, but you're 1/4 of the way there. And maybe out of that hole being plugged, you see the next one, and then you see the next one, and you see the next one. So part of this also is that uh, we have to be confident that we can in fact solve problems. You have to always look with that view of confidence. And this is
Hmm.
sometimes not easy, but you know, it's kind of you wake up and you notice, oh my goodness, I'm afraid today.
Right.
Believe me, that happens to me more than I would like. I then meditate, take a deep breath, and then say, okay, what do I need to look at? So that's kind of my approach. It's about quick feedback and observations of what makes a difference.
Mhm. So, how do you think the leaders, like the CEOs, up till even the project managers, should make some adjustments in their leadership styles now? especially with the changing environment?
Yeah, I think this is an important question. And actually, it's funny because in the agile space, a lot of people put down project managers and all projects and this and that. And it really just gets me upset. I have seen as many good project managers as I've seen good agile coaches, and I've seen as many bad project managers as I've seen maybe bad agile coaches. It's your attitude. It's not the role. Those are roles. So to me, it's again, how do project managers? Okay, you're trying to give guidance. You're trying to help people. You're not trying to be a policeman. Oh, this is what we said. I actually never had a project manager like that. I know they exist because other people talk about them. But most project managers I had were always there to help me, and they were looking at how the project was veering off, so to speak, from what it was supposed to be. So in this new world where we're saying we're going to be responsive and we're going to use agile and things like that, project managers have to look to see what's underneath all this that's going on. Why are we off? Not just let's get people back on track. Why are they off track? And not blame them. One of the key things that's been coming into light in the theories of flow and systems thinking actually goes back, 70 years to Edwards Deming, 80 years, where he talks about systems thinking and common cause, meaning that the system is causing the problem. So project managers have to look at what is the system we're engaged in that is causing the problems. That's why the Disciplined Agile Value Stream Consultant, every word in that title is very meaningful. Disciplined Agile, obviously, because that's what it is in the family. But value streams give us a way to holistically look at it. It's a way of looking at the system, which is the vast majority of the cause of errors, is the system itself. And then consultant, because it's not good enough to know what's going on. You might see what's going on perfectly. You might absolutely nail it. But if you cannot convey that to the people you're working with, it's not very useful. All you'll be there is with your clipboard telling people what to do while they ignore you. So this is the other key thing. Consulting, coaching, mentoring, assisting, guiding is all part of a PM's role. You have to know how to do that. And that's what we work into the DAVSC. In fact, there's an hour session we have on managing transitions as well. That's very important. I like William Bridges because he's very concise. So you have to learn how to do the transition, not just what to do and how do I convey it to other people.
Yes. So, and people have this one size means there. It's always not one size doesn't fit all, right? So we have that feeling that most of the time people try to push Scrum across entire organization or scaled agile across entire organization or some other framework across the entire organizations. And DA is all about the toolkit, right? So what is your recommendation for organizations who are taking a call of doing one size fit all every time?
Yeah, I think that's a real trap. You can get the impression that you've facilitated things and are moving faster because the decisions are made, let's do this. But actually, think about this. If you're trying to improve something, the first thing you have to know is what are you up to? What are you trying to accomplish? And then you have to understand what's in my way. And after you recognize what you're trying to accomplish and what's in my way, then you look for solutions. But when you decide on a framework up front, regardless of what the framework is, you've actually come in with a preconceived solution. This is one of the nice things about DA. It doesn't do that. It gives you several different approaches and several different theories and models to use. So that's really very important. Now, what's also important, and I admit I was slow to pick this up, why people do this actually, and don't challenge them with what I'm about to say, because that'll cause upset. But much of this is based on fear. People want to think that they've got something, and people are sometimes afraid to think for themselves. This is something else as a PMP you have to be very aware of. Because if people are afraid to think for themselves, you can't just tell them to think for themselves. They'll say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. See, people don't tell you what's really going on. They will tell you what I say, like what sells. Like I joke when my teenage daughter, she might ask me for an iPad or something so she can study. When she really wants it so she can be in touch with her friends. Saying that doesn't sell, but saying I want an iPad to study does. So you have to recognize that people act in this odd way called human beings. and you have to attend to that. So one size fits all is a absolutely insane approach, in my opinion.
Right. And what is the importance of continuous skill development amongst project managers and teams today?
Well, here's the thing. I believe in continuous education. You hear people talk about lifelong learning and things like that, and I believe in it. But then you look at the space out here, and it's not there at all. There's no, I mean, we're hit with 2-day workshops that then leave you on your own. One thing I know the DA provides is an ongoing community practice for the DAVSC. I started that, so I know it's there, and I know it still is there. And that's because you can learn something in a workshop, but how do you apply it? How do you use it in your work itself? So this is very important. And I believe a little bit of learning every week, a couple hours. And I mean, I do this myself, and I'm a really busy guy, but I talk to people. One of my favorite people in the industry is Tom Gelb, and admittedly now I've become a close friend of his. But we talk a couple of times a week just to talk and learn with each other. And my own workshops, a lot of them are just discussions about I have a question and answer period, and they just end up being discussions about problems we're having. You need to do this. You need to get your head out of the hole you sometimes feel like you're in. And you just have to carve that out. And I know it's difficult. I'm a morning person. I find the best thing is first thing when I get up, just pretend I'm not working yet. I just spend an hour or two doing something. And then maybe at the end of the day, if I'm not too tired, but you have to do that. And as an organization, it's incumbent on them to set this up for people. And that should be a learning organization inside. You should have some sort of community of practice inside an organization, I would suggest.
Yeah. And there are two things like explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge. So the importance of tacit knowledge on how we can promote that knowledge sharing of experience.
Yes. Well, let me say two things about this because both of these are uh, I'm just trying to see how to say this without kind of sound like I'm attacking something. But there is a pervasive attitude that does come from Scrum that I think has been damaging the industry. It's one of the reasons I like the DASM and the DASSM because they don't have that attitude. And that is that we have to just use empiricism, just the experience we have, and that we have to inspect and adapt. But this has been discounted. Actually, I think the earliest quotes I have from it go back to Da Vinci, where he talks about if you don't have theory, it's like you're a sailor without a map or a compass or a way to do anything. You need theory and empiricism. You need the two bound together, and there are two reasons for this. You learn faster. Edwards Deming talks about if you have a model, you learn fast. Experience by itself is expensive. Theory, of course, by itself is useless. They need to go together. So the two things here, when you talk about implicit or tacit knowledge, I believe, in fact, I've done this is the basis of my work in my own coaching, is that if you have a good theory that's been validated and you can talk to people about that and have them use their past experience to relate to it. Like I'll tell people, I'm going to make a lot of assertions in this discussion or this workshop. And an assertion means I'm saying something's true and I have evidence that it's true, except I'm not going to give you the evidence. I want you to give me the evidence because you already have a lot of experience. You already either have evidence and can now believe it because you have experience of it, or you can tell me you disagree. And now we have a great discussion. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe I am wrong, and then I'll learn something. So getting tacit knowledge, I call it like dormant knowledge. It's there. You just have to bring it out. And you've all had experience of this, like, oh, I didn't think about that before. And the reason you didn't think about that before so insightful is because you knew it, but you didn't know you knew it. It's kind of weird. People talk about what you know, what you don't know, what you don't know, you don't know. But they don't talk about is what you know, but you don't know you know. And that's what you need to bring out. Now, there's a second piece here. When you have explicit workflow, and a lot of people rail against this, and see, this is where I think PMPs can have a deeper advantage over a lot of agile coaches because PMPs, I think, appreciate this. Explicit workflow does not mean solid, does not mean grounded down, does not mean you cannot change it. It just means, hey, we've made an agreement. This is how we're working. This is the best way we know how to work. This is what we're going to do. And then somebody later that afternoon says, well, I think this is a better way. And I think to myself, you're right. And now that's our new explicit agreement. Explicit agreements simply mean we've agreed with each other. And this is how we're working. Now, notice that's a model itself. That's a theory. Explicit agreements are a theory that this is the best way to work. And we continuously challenge it and check it and improve it. And that's important. And you don't see that much because, oh no, we're going to inspect and adapt and respond. And they believe it's because there is no, what I talked about before, this inherent simplicity. This goes back to the belief there are a few things. And when we just have a few things, which we go over in the DAVSC workshop, I call them factors for effective value streams because that seemed more readily available to get as opposed to inherent simplicity, which does sound a little abstract. But that's the other way to do this. And that's why that's a very important thing.
Mm-hmm. And we've been talking about technology these days. So how can technology enhance the management and leadership and even collaboration during the days ahead?
Well, I think technology has great opportunity for better communication. And I think what you really need is better communication. And the Agile Manifesto, it's funny, people just hold it up like it happened yesterday. And I'm sorry, it happened 23 years ago in a very quickly changing environment. And one of the things that is stated in the Agile Manifesto that's actually technology is now made not to be true, and going to get some pushback on this, I'm sure, but is face-to-face communication is best. Now, I was there. I wasn't at the Agile Manifesto itself. I was invited to the 10-year anniversary of it when they brought some people back who were there, and then some people like myself and David Anderson, because we kind of were promoting Kanban. I was part of that back in the day, Lean Kanban University. I'm no longer affiliated. But well, I like face-to-face communication, and usually it's the best when you can do it. Okay, but this isn't too bad. I've learned how to read faces almost as well as bodies. Body language is good, but seeing the person is great. And I'm not saying that's not really a good thing. It's a great thing. But there are other kinds of communications in our global world now. And sometimes it's something like this with Zoom. And sometimes it's actually something like a virtual collaboration board. And I don't think people have appreciated this. This has kind of been my new thing over the last 3 years or 2.5 years since I left the PMI, is how to build workshops totally on collaboration boards, which are also used in the DAVSC quite a lot. But that's in a workshop, which is good. But see, I like to use these boards and do decision making and working together and collaboration. And then what happens is people who couldn't make those sessions, they can come in and see what's going on and they can add their thoughts. It's what I call asynchronous learning, asynchronous thinking, asynchronous decision making. And technology is great for this. And it's really easy stuff. It's basically these whiteboards. You got to know how to set them up, and you got to know that you're using them as communication devices. And they're not the same as sending an email. See, email threads, my goodness. They get lost. This is the whole string. You've got to set it up in a multidimensional way. To me, that's the great way to do it, because now you have people aligned. See, the reason we have so many meetings, everybody complains about meetings. Well, there's a difference between meetings and working sessions and status reports. Most meetings are status reports. They're not working together. You're kind of informing everybody, or you're trying to collaborate, and collaboration is good. You're trying to coordinate. What we want is technology to guide us in alignment. We joke about herding cats. Well, you know what? If you've got a laser pointer, you can herd as many cats as you want with no effort. They'll chase it. When you don't, and you got to make them individual, it's a lot of work. So I would suggest look at how can technology create alignment. And so we have less coordination. If you've got heavy coordination and heavy meetings, your problem is you don't have enough alignment, because you need less of both when you have a lot of alignment.
Interesting. Very, very nice. And also with AI revolution right now. So do you think AI would play a part in automating a lot of things and keeping them?
So AI in some levels is just totally amazing. Some of the generative AI, I generate pictures now with it and things like that. And I'm not really worried about Well, there are people who say it's going to be the end of the world, and I don't actually believe you can get true sentient beings, but I do believe AI can. You can accidentally create it because they're misguided, thinking they're doing the right thing when they cause disasters. But I'm not going to go there. There's pros and cons to AI. The problem with AI that I see is it's a gathering of knowledge that's out there. It's not generative intelligence. I mean, you can create new pictures and stuff like that, but are you going to actually generate something new that hasn't been done before? And my response is maybe, but I kind of doubt it. And what I see when I do AI is that it really has collected everything together. It's like an automated Wikipedia. Now, the thing about Wikipedia, I love Wikipedia. I love Wikipedia when I use it for historical events because history is easy to report on. It's horrible, and I do mean that word, awful. I hate it. I don't use it for anything that has to do with knowledge work that's undergoing change. Because what's happened there is that somebody controls something like the Kanban site. I gave up trying to explain, go there to give some different opinions because somebody owns it and they control it. Now, AI, of course, you could say nobody owns. But what it does is it's gathering all this information and it doesn't really know what's good and what isn't good. It's just a synthesis of common knowledge a lot of times. Where I see the future of AI to help us. And as I mentioned, I talked to Tom Gelb and he's doing this, and I'm going to be doing this with my work is you do selective AI. You let AI go into a body of knowledge that you have confidence is good. And then you'll get good answers out of that because then it is distilling good knowledge. But be very careful about getting old crap because it's just out there a lot. AI often gives you answers like that. I like to actually use two different AI engines when I ask questions, and it's interesting the different answers you get. They overlap, but they're not the same. So I'm not, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm an optimistic person. I think anytime there's new innovation, people worry about it. And I hope that's the case. But I think you have to pay attention to it.
Yeah. So, due to your inspiration, I am starting a session on DAVSC as well very soon. So,
Good.
what about your recommendation for project teams and everyone in the organization? Do you think that they have opportunities ahead? And if so, how can they utilize opportunities? What should they do to really build themselves to utilize opportunities ahead?
Well, I'll have to give a little plug for myself here. I've been experimenting, and I guess I have to call it an experiment. I know the technology. I'm not experimenting with that. I know what works. I know what makes companies do better and what makes people do better. And things like the DAVSC is a really good shot in the arm. It's like a real boost of knowledge and is a very worthwhile workshop. But I think what companies need to do and what individuals need to do is start undergoing a basically ongoing learning program, which is what I've created. It's very affordable and you're in it. I hope you're in it forever. I mean, literally, I know that sounds funny, but it gives you much more value over time. That's why it's kind of an experiment for me too from a business model where you spend 2 to 4 hours a week learning. You just have to carve out that time. This is especially true for PMPs who are knowledgeable but need to say get into agile. Because think about it this way, there's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago.
Mm.
The second best time is today. Well, it's the same thing. If you're worried about where you're going to be a year from now, well, if you're worried about where you're going to be now, where are you going to be a year from now? You can't do anything about where you are today, but you can do something about where you'll be a year from now. So take great workshops like the DAVSC. I mean, it is a good workshop. I'm biased, of course, but also look for programs and contact me if you're interested in what I do for ongoing learning. If you aren't worth, I mean, you personally, whoever's listening to this, if you aren't worth 2 to 4 hours a week to make yourself better, my opinion is don't be upset when people don't think you are worth that either and they don't hire you. I mean, it really comes down to that. I hate to be cold and hard about this. I've been thinking about this because, oh my God, what did you just say? But it's true. We have to believe in ourselves. We have to have our own self-worth. And I do. I believe people are way more magnificent than most people give, that other people give credit for it. Definitely ourselves. I mean, that's my big challenge. I was looking at it this morning. I meditate every morning. And I was recognizing, Al, you are so hard on yourself. when you do something wrong, you're so like you shouldn't have, and you justify it, and just let it go and believe in yourself. So I don't have hope maybe of getting totally rid of that. But I do believe that we are all better than we give ourselves credit for. But it's like something you plant in the garden. You got to plant it and you got to take care of it. It doesn't grow by itself. You don't grow by yourself. So that would be my biggest set of advice is trust in yourself, believe in yourself, and take the time for yourself. And that's what you need to do.
Absolutely. It's so inspirational to hear from you, Al Shalloway. Thank you so much for your valuable time and inspiring everyone out here.
Well, thank you. This was really nice.